It's social distancing at the chamber, a segment we sometimes call Happy Hour with Hammer. My name is Garrick Taylor. We're joined, as always, by the CEO of the Arizona Chamber, Glenn Hammer. Glenn, another special guest tonight. We head down to the Old Pueblo. Why don't you introduce our special guest?
Well, thank you, Garrick, and we're thrilled to have Chancellor Lee Lambert of Pima Community College with us. I'm just going to say it. I believe we've got the best chancellor in the United States of America.
Thank you, Glenn.
No, and just what you have done with the system in terms of matching it with the jobs of today and the jobs we're expecting of tomorrow. We could talk about aerospace. We could talk about auto, modern auto tech, healthcare. A lot of the things on cyber. It's a direct hit. So. Chancellor Lambert, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Glenn, and thanks for having me.
And I believe one of the, I won't say it was the last thing, but it was probably the November-ish time frame where we did our Made in Arizona tour, and we took a stop down at your system. And I'll just say on the aerospace and defense side, it's something else. But the first thing I wanted to ask you is, we're obviously in the midst of a global pandemic, and just how that has changed what you do day in, day out.
Well, so Glenn, great opening. So a lot of the work we were doing pre-COVID was very important to how we're navigating the current crisis. So we're putting, as you know, a lot of focus around high demand aligned with industry needs in terms of that talent pipeline. And so building these centers of excellence. So I'll put that on the table. And then we were also working on when I first arrived at Pima, we established what we call Pima Online. So right up to the crisis, we had about 30% of all of our headcount enrollment was online. So that made the transition a little bit smoother when I had to move the remaining part of the operation into a virtual context. So that's an important thing to note. So we're talking about nearly 2,000 courses we had to move into that virtual piece. But also, interesting enough, we were also putting a lot of emphasis around dual enrollment. So then you roll that forward into the crisis, and what you see is we're getting actually additional requests from high schools to do more dual enrollment. We're still moving forward with the construction projects around advanced technologies around automotive, around advanced manufacturing and aviation. And certainly I'll be glad to say more about the aviation piece because it might seem kind of strange that we would still be focused on aviation when planes are not up in the air, right? But I'll be glad to say more about that.
Well, planes will get back up in the air, and just my recollection is just the different physical aircraft that you had on campus was something else, just for the students to really get their hands on and to adjust. What point do you think that will return? Because my memory is that for a lot of that, you could do it 6 feet apart. I mean, it was a fairly large space.
Right. So let me first, thank Governor Ducey and the entire business community for supporting the expansion of our aviation project. And as you know, our plan is to double the size of that facility. Right. And that was happening before this crisis hit. So the interesting thing is, remember, before the crisis, there was already a shortage, a significant shortage in aviation technicians. So what this crisis has done, even though it has grounded much of the fleet at present day, it's allowing us to catch up with the shortage by continuing to train the technicians, because it takes just about 2 years to train a technician. And so you figure the industry hopefully will start recovering and starting to move in a positive direction as we're moving through that window of time. So that's the first piece. I think another important part of this is those planes that are grounded, someone still has to service them. They have to have someone come and start them up, make sure all the systems are working, the hydraulics is working. So guess who's doing that? It's these aviation technicians. So as you know, in our state of Arizona, we have the Pinell Air Park, where it has increased the amount of airplanes now that are grounded there. And many of our graduates work out on that site doing that work. Also, as I talked to some of our our partners here locally, they're not laying off these technicians. And so that's the other good news about
Interesting.
this so
Okay.
far. Now, I'm not saying that's not happening in other places, but when you're talking about the types of employers we have in this region who have a touch to that service side of that aircraft, we're not seeing those mass layoffs and furloughs at this point in time.
Well, this is still, to me, going to be a very, very good area for decades to come. I mean, it's people are going to want to travel, and you know, I'm glad to hear that on the ground right now, it's at least maybe a holding pattern, so to speak, as we try to get the economy going again. I'm just curious for, you know, the upcoming semesters. Are you seeing any trends in terms of an uptick in enrollment? Because people are probably not going to be going very far from home for the foreseeable future.
So I'm a big fan of Admiral Stockdale and the Stockdale paradox, right? So I thought I'd just read his quote again and put my answer in that context. So, you know, he said, "You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be." So when we look at it from that lens, we're hearing a lot of noise about what's going to happen in the fall for higher education. You're hearing, you know, 15% enrollment loss, 20% enrollment loss, and maybe even more than that. And so I have to prepare for that brutal reality that could happen to us. Now, so we're building our budget to give us the flexibility. Should that reality occur, we can pivot to match the downturn. Now, I'm hopeful that won't happen, that in fact, students will, because we're a counter-cyclical sector, that more students will come to us because they've been dislocated from work, that some of the students, as you noted, who might have gone out of state for the college or university experience, who are staying home, would come to the community college. I also think what's going to get interesting is, as all of this is highlighting, is the need for us to continue to digitize what we do as a sector. And we've been slow to digitize what we do. And what I'm referring to in this context is the online component, building high quality online offerings. I think Michael Crow has done an outstanding job of doing that work at ASU. And we're doing the same thing on a smaller scale here. And so I think that's going to pay off for us as we go into the fall, because we're able to drive the high quality experience. Because the complaints you're hearing from students are, you know, they don't like it, it's not quality, et cetera. But if you actually take a Pima online course, you're going to find it's pretty dynamic, very engaging. And so I think students in that would have a different perspective than a student who just recently was thrust into this environment.
Could you also maybe just go back a little on the dual enrollment piece? You've been a leader in that area. Just how that's all working now. Was that always more of an online experience for those students in high school?
So it was a face-to-face experience.
Okay.
For the students. And so we're working to strengthen that as well. I mean, now obviously we're doing that virtual piece, and I distinguish virtual from online only from the standpoint of quality, because the online piece, there's a lot more quality, more rigor. The training program for faculty preparation is greater. Course development is different. And so in the high schools, we're having to do this virtual piece as well. So it's not as high quality, but the other aspect of this was the career technical education pieces that we had been working with the high schools on. That's a little more challenging because those hands-on performance-based programs, at some point you want them to come touch the airplane, come touch the patient, touch the car. So that is a challenge at this time.
Garrick.
Chancellor, look, we are hoping for the best, obviously, in this pandemic, but you've got to think about what the on-campus experience is going to look like next semester. Give our viewers a sense of how you think things might go.
So, you know, we're working to follow the CDC guidelines and the guidelines coming from the state and county health departments. So it's in that context, things are going to be different, right? Because we're going to be looking at that social and physical distancing is going to be a big part of classroom experience. So we're not going to be able to bring everybody back. It's not going to look like all these students roaming around, all these staff members roaming around. It won't be like that at Pima Community College. So I'm looking to only bring back the courses I need to in what we're going to call a hybrid format. So there's a face-to-face piece of that, and then there's the flipped classroom online component to that. So you're going to see more of that type of model happening. Also, we're going to have health checks will be part of the environment. We're going to ask our employees to wear the face coverings. So PPE is going to be an important piece of that. We'll ask and encourage students to do the same thing. The whole focus is around safety and health first, and then alongside of that, trying to get those students to the finish line for their hopes and dreams to be fulfilled. So we're going to be balancing all that, but it's going to be a different experience. Unless there's a miracle between now and fall, sure. That's what fall is probably going to look like for us. We don't have the infrastructure like the University of Arizona has or ASU has. We don't have our own health capabilities internally and so forth. So we have to approach things differently than what you're hearing that the universities may be doing.
Chancellor, do you envision a potential hybrid for a student who might be attending in the classroom and for some reason there's a disruption, maybe a health disruption, that student could continue to attend, maybe electronically?
So our hope is to build our curriculum that way. We're not there yet. So I'm hoping if I get to spring, maybe the following fall, I might be more in line with what you're describing. But that's ultimately, I think, where I think the curriculum's got to go, where it gives that flexibility to the learner, whether he or she wants to come for a classroom experience and for whatever reasons can't, they can still continue in that cyberspace environment. So I think that's what you're going to see happen over time. We're just not there yet. Right. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the semester and where it makes sense, divide it into half. So we're going to run 8-week courses. So we're hoping that first 8 weeks gets us through before the flu season hits. And then when the flu season and now, that second wave that we're all anticipating hits, then we're back to this virtual context that we're currently in.
Gotcha.
Yeah, my final question is just related to COVID-19. Some of the offerings at Pima Community College. Just wondering, as students are in anything related to healthcare, or we're hearing a lot about contact tracing. If there's some specific areas right now that might be more in demand because of this global pandemic.
So our hope is that we can bring those programs back. So what I've recently done, we've talked with the governor's office. We followed up with a memorandum to say, here are the program areas we're planning to bring back for that face-to-face experience. We want to bring them back as we move into June. And so we've let the governor know. And so healthcare obviously is one of those areas. Our aviation is another one of those areas. Our advanced manufacturing, our first responders. So all of those critical areas that are needed on the front lines of this crisis, we want to bring those programs back, get those individuals into the workforce, because they're going to be needed more than ever as we move into the fall. And then my hope is to then continue those programs at the front end of the fall, do the hands-on portions then. And if we have to switch back to the theory side, we can pivot back to the online or virtual side of that.
Well, I really appreciate those comments, because there's bipartisan agreement and strong bipartisan agreement that we're bringing a lot of manufacturing back into the United States. And then when you look at the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement right around the corner, the types of offerings that you have at Pima Community College, to me, are just going to be essential for Arizona to take advantage of these opportunities.
Glenn, I think you're spot on. And as the governor has talked about this a lot, as we both know, that I just want you and the business community to know, and our lawmakers know, Pima's here to support where the state wants to move its economy. I understand what our mission is, and it's to do that. And so if you need those programs, Pima is going to take the investment of the taxpayer dollars to move in that direction. And so you've seen it when you've come down here. And I'm hoping when we can bring you back down, you'll see some of the new facilities. And the new facilities, the point of them are, I just want to touch on this, is to expand capacity. And then to modernize a lot of the technologies into it. And so we're not, wasting the taxpayers' dollars. We're reinvesting them to modernize so that we can attract those businesses who will come back to the United States, and they should come to Arizona. There's no better place to be than to be in the state of Arizona.
I can't top that, but the reason why I was laughing, I was thinking this whole thing is coming full circle, because part of the reason, I was on, we're speaking of airplane, an extremely turbulent flight. I mean, just grabbing everything next to the chair of Pima Community College. So we're talking about your work while I'm holding on for dear life on that flight, and Damien. And and it's just really fantastic what you've done for the state, what you continue to do. And I know you're Chancellor, you're a big part of what the Return Stronger for the state of Arizona is all about.
Right. No, absolutely. And as you know, we have to do well by all of our citizens. But I also want to put a particular focus on our youth and bring apprenticeship models back into play, both registered and unregistered, bring on-the-job training programs, so we get them real hands-on experiences while they're still in high school. And then we move them into the post-secondary piece and into the workplace quickly. And they'll be highly trained and highly disciplined to do the work. And there's no reason that the Swiss have the best model in the world, because we're going to have the best model in the world here right in the state of Arizona. And so it's partnerships like that with you, Glenn, and so many of the other businesses that I'm confident we're gonna be leading the way for our country.
Well, thank you for everything that you're doing, and we're very excited about the future.
Well, thank you, Glenn. I appreciate the time.
Chancellor Lambert, thanks again. Glenn,
Yes, Garrick.
we'll catch
Thank
you
you,
on the
Garrick.
next episode.
Okay, thank you, Garrick.
Thanks,
Take care.